Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're embarking on a really unique exploration. We're looking into what it actually takes to host one of the world's biggest sporting events, the FIFA World Cup. And our source for this deep dive, it's pretty imaginative, a fictional dialogue between some really unforgettable characters.
Yeah, it sounds a bit out there at first.
Right. We've got the legendary footballer Franz Beckenbauer, the wonderfully unconventional Pippi Longstocking, and maybe most surprisingly, the super intense actor Klaus Kinski acting as moderator.
Hey, yeah, quite the lineup.
Their mission in this made-up scenario is to figure out what it would take for Pippi's fantastical home, Taka-Tuka-Land, to host the World Cup.
It might sound, completely absurd on the surface, but this playful setup, it actually lets us pull out some incredibly sharp, practical insights into the huge demands, the real-world stuff involved in staging a global spectacle like the World Cup.
So we'll look at the practicalities, the money, logistics.
Exactly. The finances, the planning, even the sort of spirit of the whole thing, all through their wildly different viewpoints.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's see what this seemingly far-fetched idea can teach us about planning massive real-world events. So our journey kicks off with Klaus Kinski, and, well, true to form, he just cuts right through any preamble with that intensity. He basically challenges the whole idea of Taka-Tuka-Land hosting, right? Demanding, what does this Taka-Tuka-Land have? Stadiums, hotels, or just palms and monkeys?
Straight to the point.
He's hitting at the absolute basics, isn't he? Like, are you even remotely ready?
Precisely. And Bibi's response, well, it's exactly what you'd expect. Wonderfully optimistic, if, totally unrealistic. She admits straight up, Taka-Tuka-Land has 0 football stadiums. None.
Okay, so that's a problem.
But her solutions are pure Pippi. Her dad, King Ephraim Longstocking, he's got loads of treasure, gold coins. And she, being the strongest girl in the world, figures she could just build 1 or 2 or 3 stadiums herself.
Right, just knock them up. And the accommodation.
Oh, players can sleep in palm trees.
Or
her villicula. And she'll make pancakes for everyone.
pancakes. Okay. As charming as that is, that whole can-do attitude, it slams right into the wall of FIFA's rules, doesn't it? How does Beckenbauer, the experienced hand, react to that kind of cheerful disregard for, well, everything? What are those very strict requirements?
Yeah, Franz brings it back down to earth pretty quick. He talks about FIFA's absolute non-negotiables. So when he says a minimum of 8 modern stadiums with international standards, he means facilities meeting really specific criteria.
Not just any old field, then.
No way. Pitch quality, seating capacity, huge media zones for global broadcast, emergency access, crowd management systems, the works. Then there's the developed transport infrastructure.
Yep.
It's not just a few new roads.
Why them roads?
Oh, yeah. Efficient public transport, upgraded international airports that can handle millions of visitors, detailed logistics for moving fans around safely. And the functional security concept, that's massive.
Yeah.
It involves national intelligence, cybersecurity, coordinating crowd control across loads of different venues. These aren't just like items on a checklist. They're enormous interconnected engineering and operational challenges.
Representing a huge cost, I imagine.
An enormous investment, as he puts it. A gigantic challenge, even for really established countries. It just shows how tightly controlled these events really are.
Okay, so from those massive infrastructure challenges, Kinski, being Kinski, he just pivots instantly, cuts right to the chase. GLD. It's always about money. Billions are wasted for this.
Yeah.
This madness.
Yep.
He brings up the 2006 World Cup in Germany, Pippi's dad's gold, basically asking if they can really fund this insanity. He's voicing a pretty common criticism, isn't he?
He absolutely is. It's a big one. And Beckenbauer offers a pragmatic view, but it's quite insightful, too. He confirms, the 2006 World Cup in Germany cost about 4.3 billion euros. Infrastructure was the biggest chunk of that.
4.3 billion. Wow.
But, and this is crucial, he frames it not as waste, but as an investment in the future. He argues Germany profited enormously, both economically and importantly in terms of its international image. He calls it a summer American. A summer fairy tale.
Summer American. That's a lovely phrase. What did that really mean, though, beyond just profit? Was it more than the money?
Oh, much more.
Yeah.
That phrase really captured the national feeling. It wasn't just about economic gains. It was this overwhelming sense of unity, of hospitality, and it genuinely changed how the world saw Germany.
Yeah.
As, welcoming, vibrant.
A cultural win, then, too.
Definitely. A cultural triumph alongside the financial one. Now, for Taka-Tuka-Land, he admits it'd be a comparatively even larger investment. Huge. But he suggests it could maybe work with the right international partners and a sustainable concept. If, and it's a big if, there's realistic planning.
So investment versus waste, that's the core debate.
Exactly. Are these events genuine investments, or do they risk becoming those white elephants we sometimes hear about? Where the fancy infrastructure doesn't really pay off long term. We've seen that happen.
Yeah, definitely. And that clash, the hard economics versus Pippi's pure fantasy, that's what makes this whole scenario so interesting.
Yeah.
Her take on money is just delightful, completely outside the box, as you'd expect. For her, money is not so important. If gold coins run out, just make some. Or pay with coconuts and parrot feathers. Much prettier than boring money, she says.
Coconuts and feathers, okay.
And if the FIFA officials aren't happy, she'll just carry them around the island until they laugh, citing her dad's motto, "He who doesn't laugh won't be king of Taka-Tuka-Land."
Right.
Oh, and for security, hire pirates. They're good at making sure nobody cheats.
Chuckle softly. Well, her view on security is certainly creative, but it does underline how far the real demands go beyond just the finances.
Exactly. Okay, so money's on the table, infrastructure. Now Kinski, ever the realist, shifts focus again to something you can't ignore in the tropics. The climate. You can almost feel him sweating as he yells heat, unbearable heat. He points to Qatar having to move the World Cup to winter and asks how footballers would even survive in Taka-Tuka-Land.
And he's right to bring it up. Beckenbauer confirms it. The climatic conditions are indeed an important factor. Big time. Heat, humidity in tropical places. It's an enormous burden for the players. Affects performance, health, even when you can schedule games.
So what are Pippi's solutions for unbearable heat?
Well, classic Pippi. Inventive, childlike. Players can just use water guns or swim in the sea between the halves.
Swim break during the match. Okay.
Or her monkey friend, Mr. Nilsson. He can fan the players with palm leaves, and if it rains, even better. Mud football tournaments, which she reckons are much funnier.
Mud football.
And for night games, forget floodlights. Just use moonlight and fireflies.
Fireflies as floodlights.
Right. As charming as mud football sounds, for maybe a kickabout, it's a world away from the climate-controlled stadiums Beckenbauer would probably insist on. Is Pippi's thinking just totally off the wall here? Or does it, in its own weird way, maybe touch on something about player comfort or fan experience we overlook?
Well, the mud football certainly sounds memorable, but Franz quickly points out these conditions mean very real, practical solutions are needed. Things like shifting the tournament to a cooler season or scheduling matches for the evening hours like they did in Qatar. Those become essential.
Right. Practical steps.
But he also flags a really critical point, one that often gets missed in these discussions. He says FIFA, after the controversy surrounding Qatar, may have little interest in another tournament that disrupts the international game calendar.
The scheduling nightmare.
Exactly. That's a serious aspect for any country bidding. It's not just about keeping players cool. It's the massive knock-on effect on professional leagues everywhere, other sports events, the whole global calendar. Okay, so beyond the pitches, the heat, the money, Kinski then throws his arms up and demands to know about the culture. What are millions of fans going to do between games besides get bored in a place with just sand and sea?
Yeah, the fan experience.
It seems Beckenbauer is saying this culture bit is way more than just killing time between matches. It's about crafting an unforgettable atmosphere. What does that really take beyond fan zones, and how does that stack up against Pippi's pirate festivals?
That's a really good point. Beckenbauer, probably quite amused by Kinski's outburst, definitely reinforces it. He says a cultural framework program is indeed very important for a successful World Cup. Fans don't just travel for the 90 minutes of football, right? They come for the overall experience.
The whole package.
Exactly. Germany's 2006 success, those fan zones, the motto, the world a guest among friends. It wasn't just about the games. It created this real feeling of welcome, of celebration. You could feel it.
And Pippi's version of that.
Well, Pippi, the ultimate entertainer, she's confident Taka-Tuka-Land has the very best culture in the whole wide world. Her plan, treasure hunts and pirate festivals, teaching fans how to climb palm trees and crack coconuts.
Sounds active.
Nightly, large campfires on the beach with drum music and stories of my adventures.
Yeah.
She even throws in a sack hopping championship.
Sack hopping. Okay.
And the big bonus, all children can stay up as long as they want and never have to wash their ears.
Right, a very specific Pippi-branded cultural offering. But how does Beckenbauer square that circle? How does that fit the professional hosting model?
Well, he stresses the need to authentically present the local culture. That part resonates with Pippi's ideas, maybe.
Yeah.
But crucially, he says you also have to ensure international standards for fan support. That means proper security, medical care, and transport options. All that stuff must be professionally organized.
So the fun stuff and the serious stuff.
Exactly. He does admit, though, that the exotic atmosphere of a tropical island could certainly be a unique selling point if it's combined with all the necessary infrastructure. It's finding that sweet spot between the unique local vibe and the high international standards. That's what makes a truly great experience.
Okay, final round. Kinski's last questions. They take on a darker tone, don't they? Almost ominous. And after, when the circus is over, empty stadiums, abandoned hotels, wasted billions, what remains for Taka-Tuka-Land?
Yeah, the legacy question.
He directly challenges Beckenbauer on what really remained from Germany's famous Sommermärchen.
Yeah.
He's digging deep into the long-term impact.
And this is where Beckenbauer gets quite serious, quite reflective. He stresses sustainability is more important than ever today. It's a huge focus now. He insists a World Cup must leave a positive legacy. It's not optional anymore.
How does he counter Kinski's wasted billions point for Germany?
By pointing to actual results. He says Germany's stadiums are still used intensely today, and the improved infrastructure benefits the citizens long term. That directly tackles the white elephant criticism.
Okay, so tangible benefit.
Right. And for a place like Taka-Tuka-Land, he suggests a tailor-made concept, maybe smaller modular stadiums that can later be dismantled, or converting sports centers into schools or community centers. He also points out how improving tourism infrastructure could strengthen the economy long term.
That seems key, right? Having a plan for after the party's over.
Absolutely crucial. He notes that this kind of plan is unfortunately missing from many major events. It's a known problem. And he concludes by saying FIFA pays more attention to these aspects today when awarding bids. So there's been a shift and acknowledgement of past mistakes.
And Pippi, how does she see the legacy for Taka-Tuka-Land? Still optimistic.
Oh, definitely thoughtful, but still classic Pippi optimism. She admits, on the island, they don't think so much about tomorrow, but prefer to live today and make it beautiful. But she does share a proverb from her dad, the king. He who wants to harvest coconuts must also plant palms. So there's an awareness there.
Planting palms for the future. What's her vision?
Turning football fields into big playgrounds for all children, or gardens where delicious fruits grow. Hotels could become houses for people who have no home. Simple, community-focused ideas. And all the beautiful jungle paths. They'd stay forever so that everyone can discover the beautiful island.
A legacy of access in nature, then.
Yeah, and her ultimate legacy. It's simple. Everyone who comes to the World Cup in Taka-Tuka-Land takes a piece of joy home with them. Because for her, joy is the most important thing in the whole world, even more important than football and gold coins combined.
If you connect that back to the bigger picture, it really hammers home that a major event's real success. It's measured long, long after that final whistle blows. It's not just what you build, it's what you leave behind.
Indeed. And it brings up a really fascinating point about what legacy even means. While Franz Beckenbauer laid out all the concrete stuff, the infrastructure, the money, Pippi's constant focus on joy, community, and just creative adaptation. It asks a kind of provocative question, doesn't it? Which is maybe, just maybe, for these huge global events, the true legacy isn't only measured in concrete and cash. Maybe it's also in the intangible things. You know, the authentic joy, the shifted perceptions, the unique, maybe even slightly surreal experiences that, well, money alone can't really buy.
Exactly. And what if, like Kinski himself wondered near the end, what if football today needs less corruption and greed, more fantasy and joy? That's definitely something to think about, isn't it? We hope this deep dive gets you thinking, too, about what it really takes to make any big dream happen, whether that's hosting a World Cup or just, bringing your own big idea to life.